Imagine being told that you had to evacuate for a fire, and you kind of have done this before, so you don't bring a lot. And then you find out a day later that your entire family home that you've lived in for over 30 years is destroyed. That is what happened to Anthony Marguleas. He is the founder of Amalfi Estates, and he leads a 12-person team. He lives in the Pacific Palisades, and he is going to tell you his story and what is going on right now with the LA wildfires. So sit back and take a listen to the podcast. So Anthony, welcome to the RealTrending podcast. I know this is a trying time for you, so I appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a trying time, and if there's any information I can share that'll help other people who have lost their homes or other realtors, I'm happy to help.
Yeah. And so Anthony sells in the Pacific Palisades. He is a longtime real estate brokerage owner and team leader. And so let's talk a little bit about your experience, your losses and what's going on right now.
Well, it's hard to talk about without choking up. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have lost their homes. A lot of our friends, a lot of our clients, the community. It's been brutal. Right now, the news media isn't really reporting. There's 23,000 people who live in the Palisades, and 23,000 have to find housing. So imagine right now, 23,000 people have to find housing within 5 to 7 days, typically. So it's just been an absolute crazy time. And, to lose the whole community and to lose, it's like a communal sense of mourning. I mean, to have, everyone go through that. And you might say, well, it's a house, right? But when you're looking at all the memories of everything, and then stuff that you have in your house, whether it's from your parents, your grandparents, or deceased relatives, it kind of brings up that whole feeling. So, yeah, it's tough. It's been challenging. So,
yeah,
and then insurance, and then getting insurance. A lot of our clients who are on, not to get too much in the weeds, but the people who are on California Fair Plan, which was probably 20 or 25, maybe 30% of the Palisades. So California Fair Plan, for those not in California, is insurance the state offers if the traditional carriers like State Farm and Farmers and others, Chubb, won't give insurance. You have to go to the California Fair Plan, which is state offered, but it has limitations. And those limitations are you only have a maximum amount for loss of use, and it's substantially smaller than a traditional policy. So it typically only covers really 2 or 3 months, when most traditional policies, the State Farm, Farmers, and Travelers and Chubb, will cover 2 to 3 years. So imagine you lose everything in your house, and you're only given by an insurance company 2 or 3 months of rent to go see where you're going to move to. So it's been rough, and there's a few people who didn't have insurance, and then there's the renters who didn't have proper insurance. Renters, typically maybe they have 15, 20, maybe 30,000 of personal property. When they have several $100,000 of stuff in their house, they just lost, and they're not going to get it back.
Tell me your personal experience. I know you went out. Did you lose your home? And tell me about your experience walking through when you sent me some videos and pictures that were devastating.
Yeah. So I lost my home. Approximately 60% of the Palisades lost homes and or businesses. So where I live in an area called the Alphabet Streets, which is near the village, and 99% of the homes there got destroyed by the fires. So we literally have one suitcase. You're not able to. Normally, I've lived there for 31 years, and normally when there's a fire, we're not near brush, so we thought we were protected. It's not like we built up in the hills or the canyons where you're going to have fire and brush. We built in a very dense neighborhood, and so in the last 20, 30 years when there's an evacuation order, we grab stuff, we know we're gone for 2 or 3 days and we come back. But in this case, that wasn't the case. So yeah, it's been challenging.
And where are you living now? Are you in the area still? And did you lose your office as well? Or tell me a
Yeah,
little
I
bit
luckily
about
didn't
that.
lose my office, but we weren't really going to the office much because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife and I and two dogs have moved to 4 different residences in 5 days for a variety of
Wow.
reasons. Either the place we moved to, they had to evacuate because they're expanding the evacuation order.
Mm-hmm.
And so the place we're in now, we're there for a couple weeks, and then we're going to move to a more permanent rental situation. But it's the price gouging is really painful to see.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a Penal Code 396, which says you can only increase by 10% during a natural disaster. Governor Newsom just expanded that for 1 year. But there's still a lot of sellers who are taking advantage. And part of it's a market economy, so it's a little bit of a nuance. There are
Mm-hmm.
some people who had a lease price for X, and then the day of the fires, they raised it 100%, right? There are those people. But this is more people where they priced it at one thing, which was market value. And the market is so active and so many people want it, it'll bid up 100% more. So,
Mm-hmm.
but that technically is price gouging. The seller legally cannot accept that, but they are. So I don't know if I blame the sellers, it's the market. But
Yeah, yeah, that's a
it's
tough situation. I mean,
yeah.
I've read about that. Rentals, well, being very scarce as well. So you're lucky if you even get a rental. Did you stay in the area? How far away from your
Yeah.
home are you?
A lot of people in Pacific Palisades, we're directly located, the Palisades being Santa Monica and Malibu. So a lot of people are
Mm-hmm.
moving down south, like Marina Del Rey, Playa del Rey, Manhattan Beach. A few are going to Beverly Hills area. What's going to be interesting, it's going to be a generational shift in the Palisades. The homeowners that are typically 60, 65 and younger, all the ones we've talked to most likely are going to rebuild. The generation that's in their 70s and 80s won't rebuild. They had a little 1,500 square foot home. They're not going to rebuild. And so the whole dynamic and makeup of Pacific Palisades, which for those who don't know, I mean, Palisades is just an incredible community and people are down to earth and they're just, it's such an amazing place. I've been there 33 years now. And I literally I've been in 2,000 of the 8,000 homes in the Palisades, and I've sold 500 of them. So to see my family torn apart like this, my clients are family. It's hard, but I think the generational shift is going to be really interesting. Not to have anyone over 65, 70, a lot of people are going to be leaving, and it's just going to be really interesting how that's going to look like. Property values in the surrounding neighborhoods, Brentwood, Santa Monica, for example, lease prices have gone up 50% or more. Purchase sale prices have gone up 5 to 10%. And we're talking in 72 hours. we're talking 72
Yeah.
hours we've seen this. I think land values in the surrounding parts of Los Angeles and the Santa Monica Brentwoods and the surrounding neighborhoods will substantially drop. Prior to January 7th, there was maybe 4 or 5 teardowns in the Palisades. Now there's 5,000. So the values of the land is going to get depressed all over the west side, is what we see.
What about in rebuilding? I've read articles where there is a limit to the rebuilding or the building that can happen in Malibu and maybe some of those other areas. Permitting is very difficult to get. You live there, what do you think it's going to look like as far as rebuilding, and how long will it take to actually get the permitting and that to start?
It's a good question. So a lot of people in the Palisades, for better or for worse, have a lot of money. let me clarify that. There are some wealthy individuals in the Palisades and there's non-wealthy people in the Palisades. But the ones that do have means have political connections, and they're going to streamline as best as possible the building permits process. Governor Newsom just signed yesterday an executive order which waives it's called CEQA, CEQA, and the Coastal Act requirements for reconstruction. And so that'll help streamline the process. And the reality is, what we're seeing is there's 3 major events happening in Los Angeles in the next few years. LA is hosting the World Cup in about 18 months on June 12th. The Super Bowl is coming in 2 years, and the Summer Olympics is coming in 3.5 years. So I think economically, they're going to do whatever they can to build as quickly as they can, and streamline that process. We're also talking to our clients, and you being HousingWire know a lot of this about the mortgage forbearance process that allows the homeowner affected by a disaster to reduce or suspend their mortgage payments, sometimes up to 12 months, and then the balance is going to be added to their mortgage at that time. So we're helping with that. We're helping with the property reassessment, so they can go to the LA County tax assessor and have their property reassessed because of the homes have been destroyed, to kind of help with that. We're seeing some really odd situations we never thought we'd see. For rentals, for example, a third of our business has been rentals in our company. So we've helped over the years about 1,500 families, and about a third were rentals. Some of our clients would pay rent a year in advance, and now the house burned down. And now they have to go back to the landowner or the landlord, housing provider, and get those funds back. And there's been situations where the housing provider, i.e. landlord, says, I spent it, sorry. And so that's been an unusual situation. We've had situations where the seller told us a couple of days ago, we're in escrow representing a seller, we're not representing the buyer, and all contingency has been removed. We're supposed to close escrow. Fires hit. Seller says, I want to have a clause in the contract that says if the buyer were to sell this property in the next 12 months, I get 50% of the proceeds. Mm-hmm. It's in escrow and they've removed contingencies. And then they said, well, if I can't do that, I want to just ask the buyer to pay me another $500,000 because that's what the market's saying. Or I want to go to the agents and just reduce the commission because all my neighbors are going to get more money for their properties. So you see the good in people and you see the bad in people during hard times. And there's so much good. I mean, people are reaching out and they want to help, and not just Palisades. The Eaton fire is horrible, in all of LA. I mean, it's actually horrific what's happening, and all the businesses that had employees that were at the market and at the store and at the bank, they don't have jobs. So it's really bad.
And I want to clarify this because I think that, some of the sentiment I'm seeing is, it's bad, but those people are all rich. So, they probably have other homes or it's going to be easy for them. I want you to clarify, that is not always the case. First of all, there's the insurance issue. But so tell me a little bit about that. You've worked with these people. So.
Yeah. So there's a lot of teachers, retired teachers, nurses, retirees who bought their homes in the Palisades 30 years ago for $50,000. And they've appreciated quite a bit and they don't have a mortgage, but all their asset and all their life was in their home. And now they have the shirt on their back and all their memories are gone. These are real life things they're going through, whether they have money or not. But like I said, a lot of them are retirees who don't have a lot of money. They just happen to be lucky buying in an area that appreciated so much, Tracey, over the years. So that's been really, really hard. To see that.
So as far as your company, tell me, do what percentage of your agents have been impacted, and what is your focus in helping people now?
So I have 12 agents in my team.
Mhm.
Uh, Luckily, I was the only one living in the Palisades. There's a second one living in the Palisades, and the fire came up to her back of her property, and they were able to stop it.
Wow.
Um, so, but we've been working 20-hour days trying to place people into properties, and a lot of times just doing it for free because we're just here's a list. However you want to reach these people, we'll help with the paperwork if you need it, whatever we can do. But right now, it's just getting access into the properties. So that's really been our priority right now. I think it's going to be probably a year before FEMA comes in and clears all the lots. Realistically, a lot of people want to go back in and see what's left of their homes, and they've unfortunately found some bones and people have passed away, and so they've called it there's a crime scene, and they were letting people in by escort, and now they're not letting people in by escort. There was a lot of looters, which was really incredibly horrible. I mean, you feel like you've been victimized twice. We have friends in Brentwood who had to evacuate. Their home didn't burn, but on the Ring camera, they're seeing a bunch of looters inside their home. There were looters on our street. We found out later from one of the neighbors an hour before the fires hit.
You said there's a lot of misinformation going around. So clear up some things to me. What are you seeing as the biggest kind of misinformation, and what do you think other realtors, around the country should know?
Well, prior to jumping into the information, when it ties into it a little bit, but my phone is ringing off the hook and my email is ringing off the hook. I can't tell you how many agents are reaching out to me because they Google me and see, oh, you're the top agent in the Palisades. Oh, I have a home in Arizona that I can't sell. Do you have any buyers that may want to buy it? And I mean, I guess they're trying to be nice, but they're really self-serving. I mean, I literally must have 100 of these, and it stops me from really being able to talk to my clients about all their properties they're trying to unload under the guise of trying to help. Now, if they have a home locally, that's different. But all these out-of-state people, that's been really challenging. So the misconceptions, there's just a lot of chatter on the WhatsApp. There's a WhatsApp for the Palisades with us 1,000 members. There's one for each individual neighborhood. And there's a lot of people who just start talking about stuff. And even online. I mean, Josh Altman's on Fox Business yesterday saying 100% of the Huntington burned down, which is completely wrong. It was about 25%. I've walked the streets and telling, it's stuff like that, it's just frustrating because of the information, the proper information is not out there of what you can and can't do, when we can get back in. It's just things like that. We're trying to give as accurate information as possible to our clients that can help them, whether it's insurance related. We've done little group chats for if you're in a Farmers or State Farm or Travelers, talk to the other people so you can compare notes. We're finding some really good public independent adjusters to help negotiate. And so I've worked out a discount for anyone that mentions my name for our local community to help, with that, because the insurance companies want to delay, deny, defend. It's not in their business model to write the maximum check they can as quickly as possible. And so right now, people, they need funds to buy medication and to buy food and to buy everything, So so the miscommunication is broad. I can't really say this one thing, but I've seen things like someone said on a WhatsApp, "Oh, don't worry, your insurance company is going to cover the cost of the private adjuster," which is not true. Anyway, it's just the National Guard came in 2 days ago, thank God, and they're now protecting the homes that are left. which is helpful. But yeah, so
Yeah, I mean,
I'm rambling.
I live in Florida. Obviously hurricanes are a big threat for us. And the one thing I think people forget is, even I'm in Orlando and we have been hit by some hurricanes directly, but not like on the coast. So we don't get the damage that those homes do. But even in my area, there's no gas. The grocery stores are empty. I think people forget that it's not just the home that's lost. It's like your entire life is upended because there aren't supplies. There aren't. And tell me about how that's going around, like by you.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, if it was just our home, that would be one thing, but it's the school our kids went to. It's all their friends' homes. It's all their friends' memories. It's a collective mourning. I don't know how else to really explain it. People that have had businesses, restaurant owners who have businesses for 30, 40 years in the community. It's a loss of a whole community. I know it can be rebuilt. We get that. We get it can be rebuilt. But it's just, it's tough. And I hope all the people that have jobs can there's going to be a boom for jobs. That's for sure. I mean, you have to rebuild 5,000 homes in the Palisades. You have to rebuild all the homes. It's the 7,000 homes in the Eaton fire. It's going to be a boom for the economy for a lot of the people that lost their jobs. They'll have to repurpose to other lines of work. But there'll be a lot of jobs. That's the good news built into the economy. So,
what are some stories of, just bright spots throughout this? Maybe it was someone who reached out to you, that in a meaningful way, or an agent who helped a homeowner in some way. I'd love to hear some of the stories of your agents and what you've done in the area.
So my two sons work for me, and they lost their family home.
Mm-hmm.
And they're mourning, and they're going through trying to help. They're going through trying to help as many people as possible find homes and find properties. My next door neighbor has 4 little kids under 4 years old, and it was the saddest story. Well, it just hit me. They haven't told their kids. They haven't told their kids that their house burned down. They picked them up from school, and it happened 6 days ago. So they picked them up from school, and they said, we're going to stay at this friend's house, and they're trying to find another property to move to, so they can just tell their kids in a couple of weeks, hey, this is a new house we're living in. And I just thought to myself, wow, you haven't told your kids your house burned down. How just like conceptually, it's been a week now, and they don't even know that everything that they in their world, right? They're little kids. So that was, just to hear that was hard. I've heard one of our friends, a friend of a friend, he stayed to fight the fire, which you're not supposed to do. He died. And we're going to hear more and more about it. It's almost like every day, it's like a train wreck, is going to happen, and you don't want to look, but at the same time, you kind of, you have to know what's going on. So, So I don't know.
So how can we help? How can realtors help? How can people listening to this podcast help in a meaningful way?
I think giving to the fire department, giving to the Salvation Armies, giving to, whatever resources are out there. And if there are people that don't have insurance, giving them gift cards would probably be helpful. I know people want to bring clothes, but you don't know people's sizes, and you don't know, and you want to make it as easy as possible. I think the phone calls to people that have had their home burned down, you just don't have. I am like anal returning texts and emails. It's just my personality. I had 600 texts and 700 emails, And the last 3 days, I haven't been able to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And so people mean well, what can I do? What can I do? But, and I know they want to help that individual. So maybe an Amazon
Mm-hmm.
gift card just to get that person, going, and just
Mm-hmm.
when you text them, say, you do not need to reply.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there we go. But we will rebuild, and
Mm-hmm.
the community's strong, and everyone I've talked to is going to eventually move back. And I hope to God there's not more loss of life in any of the LA
Mm-hmm.
fires,
Yeah.
because it's just, yeah. So,
Yeah. Well, our
yeah.
prayers are with you. I know you're still really processing this. It's going to be a long period of grief. And we appreciate everything you're doing for the people of your community. As a real estate agent, as a realtor, it has to be really difficult because you can make the difference in someone's life while you're also struggling with just the whole grief process and the rebuilding process of your own life. So thank you so much for joining
Yeah,
RealTrending. We
you're welcome.
appreciate
And
you.
it's not just me. There's hundreds and hundreds of realtors out there that are doing amazing, amazing jobs right now. And we're not
Yeah.
saving lives, but we're doing the next best thing. We're putting people
Mhm.
back in their homes. So thank you, Tracey.
Yeah. Thank you, Anthony.